Hello. I am going to be making a video today for the 3D portion of the program. And I kind of discovered or stumbled across this idea of a comfort box. And I thought it was interesting and kind of appropriate for this, especially during this kind of weird time we're all going through. Um, so the original idea that I saw, they used a matchbox and covered it with paper and decorated the inside and the outside. But the art center had these little containers, so you should have gotten one of these. And we're going to cover this together and then make some notes and things to go inside. So in order to make this, you're going to need your box. You'll need some colored paper and scissors and glue and any kind of pens or markers or writing utensils that you want to use, perfectly appropriate. I spent a lot of time with my Sharpie. I love my Sharpie. And actually this Sharpie brings me some comfort and joy. But you may prefer colors. Your paper may be colorful. Your markers may be colorful. They may be both together. We'll see what you come up with. All right. So I have found the easiest way to cover this is to trace. So take the lid and to trace it on there. I know you can't really see me doing that. So just trace around that. And because you guys are visual learners, I will visually do that. And again, I'm just going to talk you through it here because I've got a lousy kind of camera as far as how to make this video. So you'll suffer along with me. So I just traced the outside. Now, if you're thinking, you're going to realize that if you trace the outside and you cut exactly on the edge of where you trace, it's probably going to be a little bit bigger than what the actual box is. So when I cut inside the circle just a little bit, and I can always trim it later. And I have found that if you turn the paper instead of your scissors, that seems to be a more effective technique. So I try to rotate my paper to fit in there, and there we go. Okay, so there's my circle. You may have your circle, and then you want to glue that on there. I'm using some Elmer's tacky glue. I like to, instead of trying to squeeze it out of this, that inevitably gets clogged, and then I spend a long time trying to get it unclogged. I like to just put some glue on a little bit of like cardstock or poster board, something that's kind of thick, or even a lid. If you had like a plastic lid, that might work also. A lid from even like a milk container or yogurt container or whatever. And then, I don't know about you, but I'm a finger kind of messy girl. So I just dip it in there. And this is a really thicker glue. So if you're using Elmer's, like school glue, that's going to be less of a bond, but it'll also be less tacky and sticky and kind of ultimately maybe more messy, but and do a nice thin coat on there, and then obviously put your paper on there. Now, as I'm reflecting, if I wanted to decorate this, it might be easier to decorate the paper first before you put it on there. It's going to kind of be an artist's choice, so up to you. And I can see that mine kind of hangs off there, off the edge a little bit. If that bothers you, you can simply trim it off. If it really, really bothers you, because I know that some people it's just unacceptable, and you're worried about the edge, then I would probably trim it first before you glue it. But for me personally, it's not one of those things that like, I can't get past it. So I wanted the edge covered too, this little rim, but I didn't want the whole thing. I wanted some of that brown to show because I kind of like that look. So I didn't measure this. I just took a piece of paper and cut a thin, and this paper would be 8.5 by probably 11. So 11 would be long enough, but I've cut that other circle out of it, so I ruined my own idea here, but we'll see if this is long enough. And I eyeballed it. I did not measure it. So totally up to you as far as how, not neurotic, that's probably not the right word, but how detail oriented you are. You might decide you want to measure it. You might decide you want to have it fit exactly. You might just kind of be, or you might use a ruler so you're sure it's straight. I just free cut it. So let's see how this one works that I just cut. That one also is not quite as thick as the rim, but this, in my opinion, this one doesn't go all the way around. So you are going to need your 11 inch full-size paper. Although you could certainly, if you had a hole, you could certainly just cut off another little piece and glue it on there. That's not a crisis, but especially when we're considering making a comfort box, which is supposed to bring us comfort and relief and help us to feel calm, then we probably don't want to get super stressed out while we make it. And what I found, and I already have some of this prepped, so what I found while I was making this was that the process itself really kind of brought me a little bit of joy. So I'm hoping this act of creation actually ends up bringing you some joy. So for me, again, mine was going to go in the middle so I could see some of the brown over it. Lining it up kind of where I wanted it as far as edges. And you know what I'm thinking as I'm doing this? A ribbon might be nice. So if you had some ribbon laying around, I don't think the Art Center sent any ribbon because I'm not using ribbon. But if you had some ribbon, that might be a nice way to cover this edge. And now I had an extra piece, so it's a little bit longer, which actually works to my advantage because it's going to give us a better bond as I double up there. And a good press. And again, this tacky glue, I'm not sure what glue you got with your kit, but if you got regular Elmer's glue, fine. It will work. But if you have tacky glue or you have access to tacky glue, you might decide to use a tacky glue because it's a quicker and a firmer stick. So there's not so much popping off. You don't have to hold it as long. All right, so we're going to set that aside, and then we're going to think about this piece. Now, this piece I did measure because I did want it to be reasonably close to this size. However, I wasn't too diligent or too worried about getting it right at the top because I knew the lid was going to cover that, and I worried that if it was sticky or if that I had glue sticking up and I didn't have the patience to wait, that when I put the lid on it might get stuck or rip the paper. So if you have a lot of patience, then good for you. I do not. So again, I used this paper and I eyeballed it. Oh no, I didn't eyeball it, did I? Oh, I did. Actually, I did. But I said you might want to measure it just to make sure. Although bigger is probably better, so you can't go really. So maybe I'll just cut it deliberately larger than what I need. Thicker, I guess, not necessarily larger. And then I can see that's too big. So then I can eyeball it and cut off what I want to make it. So already did that. So again, I'm going to use that tacky glue, that nice thickness, and I'm just going to smear it around the container. For this piece, since it's bigger, I found it much easier to put the glue on the container rather than the glue on the paper. Now when I did the little, the top piece, that's kind of like a ribbon, I found that it was really easier to put it on the paper because the paper was smaller. If I'd measured it and made it the same size, then I probably could have been a little freer with where I put my glue, but I wanted it really in the middle. So, all right, so I am a sloppy gluer, so I've got some glue coming off the edge there. I kind of want to make sure that I don't set it down on my table and have it get stuck on the table. And then again, because this glue is tacky and this glue is a thicker glue, makes it easier to put this paper on, excuse me, and not worry so much about the glue dripping off, making a giant mess. All right, so again, this is going to come over. It's going to overlap. That's going to be to my advantage. It's going to give me a little bit of a better bond. And I can put the glue on the paper itself down here where the box is, or I can put it on the actual ribbon paper. I want to really make sure I get some good tacky glue there in the corners. So it's a full stick there on the edge. So, and I have found also that sometimes if I do a little bit of lifting and closing, I get a better bond because the glue starts to dry just a little bit, and kind of that sticky tackiness will make a better bond. All right, so now I'm covered. Again, if you wanted to decorate these things, I would suggest, especially for this part, that you decorate beforehand, because it's going to be at an awkward angle, you know, to try to draw on it. But my intent was not to decorate the outside, but you may have a different intent. A different intent. How dare you think differently than me? So then, since we were calling it a comfort box, it would be not much of a comfort box if we didn't put anything in it. So the in it parts, I think, are the little bit more of the creative part. So what I did, and certainly you can do it however you think it would be fun for you, or whatever you find you might want to put in there. I made some circles of colored paper, and what I did, again, and I've talked about this when I talked about the last time when we did the lid, is I traced the container. So I laid it on there. Hello. I laid it on there and I traced around it. But you can see very clearly that I cut inside because I want these circles to fit all the way in there. And I did also a stacking of the paper. So rather than having only one at a time, I traced and then I laid my papers together and cut multiples at a time. So, all right. So then what I did after I cut them was I started thinking about things that would be comforting to me. So it could be maybe you do a little bit of yoga, or maybe you are into meditation. So I don't know what you're into. Maybe you have an animal that brings you a lot of joy or a lot of calmness and just relief sometimes from stress. So it kind of depends on what you find that you would like to put in there, what kind of messages, or what, even a drawing. It doesn't have to be a message. So I'm going to show you the ones I did. I'm hoping these aren't going to be backwards, but if they are, you have to bear with me. So this one says take 5. So that's kind of encouraging myself to take a break. This one says create, and then I decorated around it. So for this one, I was actually thinking the act of creation, making something, for me, really brings me a lot of pleasure. And I'm thinking you're probably on the same wavelength there with me because you are taking this class. So in addition to it bringing me some comfort and some joy, it can also be a nice way to relax. Art can be a way to express your feelings and your emotions. So if you're feeling angry or sad or happy or excited, you can put that energy into whatever it is you're making. This one says, look for joy. And again, I don't want you to feel compelled to only do words. Doesn't have to be words. So this one says, breathe. I really hope these aren't backwards. This one says, breathe. And then this one I actually came up with as I was making this. it says listen for nature. As I was making it, I heard the birds chirping, and I thought that's a beautiful sound. And it is a beautiful day outside, but that's a beautiful sound, and it's nice sometimes to just listen. So I'm going to be quiet for a moment. I don't know if you can hear the birds, but I can. I can also, if I listen really closely, I can hear the television upstairs, which isn't a calming, relaxing thing for me, although it can be a nice distraction. I can also hear my pet, my kitty, Joshy Cat, who I love so very much. I can hear him. He's at his food bowl having a little snack. This one says, see the beauty. And I just wrote the words over and over, kind of in like a little spiral. See the beauty, see the beauty, see the beauty. And then I did make some extras because, as I stated earlier, the act of creation sometimes brings me some comfort. So I just realized that you can't see that I'm putting them in there. So these empty ones I could put in there too. In fact, I don't want the empty ones to be on top, because when I open it, for my first glance, I want to see something that I made. So I'm going to put those in there, the blank ones, and then here, these little ones in there. Okay, and then the last idea that I had for the circles was if you wanted to use a picture. It could be funny, or it could be meaningful, or it could just be a picture that you really like. It doesn't have to be a picture of people. It could be a picture of a place that you like. And I love cutting. Cutting is one of my favorite things to do. And I like sometimes making funny little blurbs. And so I could take a circle, and I could glue myself on here with my spouse, my husband, and maybe I could say something funny over here, or not. Even just putting that on there might be enough. Or I could take a picture specifically for this comfort box. So that is my idea of my own comfort box. I hope that you find some comfort making your box. And I'm going to put my lid on. And I know, because I have some little containers, that I'll probably end up using this for some other things too. So, all right, it's been a very nice time being with you. Taking the lid off. So remember to see the beauty wherever you go, and enjoy the day. And I would love to see what you've made. I'm not sure if there's going to be a way to do that, so I'm hoping that maybe there will be. All right, be well, be safe. Don't forget to wash your hands. And all right, I'll see you another day. Bye-bye.